Attraction is not a static force. It is not something that, once established, remains indefinitely. No, it is something that must be maintained, something that must be maintainously earned continuously. And this is where many relationships falter, not because the love has disappeared, but because the mystery and passion have been neglected, slowly eroded by routine, complacency, and an unspoken assumption that what was once exciting will always remain so. But that assumption is false. Yet if the assumption is false, passion, like anything of value, requires effort. You see, we are creatures who exist in the tension between order and chaos. Too much order, and life becomes stale, predictable, uninspiring. Too much chaos, and it becomes unstable, overwhelming, even dangerous. The best relationships, those that endure, that thrive, find a balance between these two forces. They provide enough stability to feel secure, yet enough unpredictability to remain exciting. When a woman understands this, when she embodies this, she becomes irresistible to her man. Now, this is not about playing games. It is not about manipulation, nor is it about withholding affection as a means of control. It is about remaining a source of fascination. Think about it. When you first meet someone, there is an inherent sense of mystery. You don't know everything about them. You discover them piece by piece, by piece. Every interaction reveals something new. This uncertainty is part of what makes attraction so intense. But over time, as two people become more familiar with each other, they often, without realizing it, drain the relationship of the very element that made it exciting in the first place. The unknown. Now, some people interpret this reality in a way that leads them to fear commitment. They assume that long-term relationships are doomed to monotony, that passion inevitably fades. But that is a misunderstanding. Passion fades only when it is neglected. The key is not to avoid commitment, but to avoid stagnation. A woman who keeps a man addicted to her is a woman who continues to surprise him. She does not become predictable in the sense that she is fully known in every way. There is always more to her, more depth, more ambition, more unpredictability. Indeed, she continues to evolve, to grow, to pursue new interests, to challenge both herself and her partner. This is not just beneficial for attraction. It is essential for respect. Because a woman who ceases to grow, who stops pushing herself, who settles into a passive state of existence, ceases to be compelling. There is a reason why men are drawn to women with a sense of purpose. It is not simply because ambition is attractive in itself, but because it signals vitality. It signals that this is a person who is engaged with life, who has a mind of her own, who cannot be taken for granted, and that, in turn, makes her desirable. Because the moment a person feels they have their partner completely figured out, the moment there is nothing left to discover is the moment attraction begins to decline. But mystery alone is not enough. It must be coupled with passion. And passion, contrary to popular belief, is not something that simply appears when the conditions are right. It is something that must be cultivated, and it begins with presence. How often do couples find themselves in the same room, physically together, yet completely disconnected? The phone, the television, the endless distractions of modern life, all of it chips away at intimacy. And intimacy is not just about physical closeness. It is about attention. When a man feels that his woman is fully present with him, not half engaged, not distracted, but truly there, it reignites something primal. It reminds him of what initially drew him in. This is why the small things matter. The way you touch him when you walk past. The way you look at him, not with the dull familiarity of routine, but with the intensity of someone who still sees him as the man she desires. Too many people assume that attraction is either there or it isn't, as though it were some static quality. But that is not how desire works. It must be rekindled actively and intentionally. And this is where many relationships fail, not in one dramatic moment, but in the slow erosion of passion through neglect. The assumption that desire will take care of itself, that there is no need to consciously cultivate it, that is a mistake, because desire left unattended fades. But desire that is fed, that is protected, that is treated as something worth maintaining, remains. So what does this mean practically? It means never taking attraction for granted. It means continuing to flirt even after years together. It means making space for playfulness, for moments that break routine, for spontaneity. It means staying in touch, not just emotionally, but physically. It means embracing the paradox that while stability is essential for trust, a relationship without unpredictability becomes lifeless. And that is why a woman who maintains her sense of mystery, passion, and unpredictability will always be deeply, irrevocably desired. Because men do not fall in love with women who are merely present, they fall in love with women who keep them on edge just enough to stay fascinated. They are drawn not just to beauty or kindness, but to the sense that their woman is still undiscovered, that there is still more to learn, to explore, to chase. And that is the secret. When a man feels that his woman is not entirely conquered, when he senses that there is still more to uncover, more to earn, he will never stop pursuing her. A man is not drawn to weakness. He is drawn to femininity that possesses depth, substance, and strength. This is something that is often misunderstood. Strength, in the way most people use the word today, is often associated with masculine traits, dominance, aggression, assertiveness. But true feminine strength is something entirely different. It is not about overpowering a man, nor is it about diminishing him to elevate oneself. It is about embodying a presence that commands respect, admiration, and devotion. Not through force, but through the sheer power of being someone who cannot be ignored. A woman who understands this does not shrink herself, nor does she feel the need to become hard or unapproachable. She does not equate strength with confrontation or with proving a point at every opportunity. Instead, she carries herself with a quiet confidence, a certainty in who she is, in what she values, and in what she is willing to accept in her life. And this is what makes her irresistible. Because a woman who respects herself, who knows her worth without arrogance, who sets standards without unnecessary hostility, is a woman who a man will fight to keep. Now let's be clear. This is not about playing games, nor is it about withholding affection as some kind of manipulative tactic. A woman who is genuinely strong does not need to resort to such things. Her power lies in something deeper. The fact that she is not dependent on external validation for her self-worth. She does not cling. She does not beg. She does not stay where she is not valued. She does not tolerate behavior that undermines her dignity. And because of this, she commands a different kind of respect, one that goes beyond mere attraction. You see, men do not fall in love with weakness. They may indulge it. They may entertain it temporarily. But true, lasting, unwavering commitment, that is reserved for a woman who has a presence that cannot be dismissed. A woman who knows how to walk away when necessary. Who does not operate from a place of desperation. Who does not fear solitude because she knows that her worth is not contingent on another's approval. And this is a paradox that many struggle to understand. The less you need someone to choose you, the more valuable you become in their eyes. Desperation repels. Self-assuredness attracts. A woman who knows that she is a prize. A woman who does not demand to be chosen, but instead creates a life so compelling that being with her is an opportunity, not an obligation. This is the kind of woman a man cannot walk away from. Now, does this mean that a woman should be emotionally distant or unavailable? Of course not. Strength does not mean coldness. In fact, some of the most powerful women are also the most loving, the most nurturing, the most deeply compassionate. But here is the key. Their love is not indiscriminate. They do not pour themselves into people who do not reciprocate. They do not exhaust themselves trying to prove their worth to someone who refuses to see it. They are selective, and that selectivity makes them valuable food. This is where boundaries become essential. A strong woman understands that what she allows in her life will define her experience. If she tolerates disrespect, she will receive it. If she accepts mediocrity, she will get it. She will get it. If she lowers her standards out of fear that someone will leave, she will soon find herself resenting both the person who stayed and herself for allowing it. But a woman who upholds her standards with quiet certainty, without hostility, without unnecessary confrontation, but with absolute clarity, will never have to chase a man, because the right man will rise to meet her, or he will remove himself. And either outcome is acceptable. This kind of self-respect creates a dynamic that is incredibly compelling, because it introduces consequence, and consequence is what keeps attraction alive. When a man knows that his actions have weight, that his woman is not someone who can be taken for granted, that she is with him by choice, not by fear, not by need, but by deliberate decision. This is when his commitment becomes something deeper than obligation. It becomes devotion. And you see, men want to be chosen, but they also want to feel that they must earn that choice continuously. A woman who makes herself too easily, one who sacrifices her standards for the sake of keeping peace, who accepts less than she deserves because she fears being alone. She does not create the kind of dynamic that sustains passion. But a woman who stays true to herself, who does not compromise on what truly matters, who operates from a place of strength rather than fear. This is a woman who becomes an addiction. And here is the most important thing. This strength must be genuine. It cannot be an act. A woman who only pretends to have high standards but caves at the first sign of resistance will not command real respect. A woman who claims to be independent but is, in reality, terrified of losing someone. But a woman who truly believes in her own worth, who is not afraid to be alone, who does not operate from a place of lack, but from abundance. This is a woman whose presence is unforgettable. Men do not stay loyal to weakness. They do not give their hearts fully to desperation. They do not devote themselves to those who cling out of fear. They may indulge such things temporarily, but their soul craves something stronger, something unshakable, something worth fighting for. So the question is this: are you a woman who a man chooses out of convenience? Or are you a woman he fears to lose because he knows deep down that he will never find another like you? Because the difference between those two is the difference between being an option and being the only choice that truly matters. There is an undeniable truth that shapes the foundation of every lasting, fulfilling relationship. A man does not simply want to be loved. He wants to be needed in a way that gives his life greater meaning. And a woman who understands this, who truly grasps the depth of this desire, will always hold a unique and irreplaceable place in his heart. Now, when I say needed, I do not mean dependency. That is where most people get it wrong. A woman who is desperate for a man, who relies on him for her happiness, her stability, her very sense of self, this is not attractive, nor is it sustainable. No man of value wants to feel like he is responsible for holding someone together. That is not a need. It is a burden. And burdens over time become resented. What a man truly seeks is purpose within his relationship. He wants to feel that his presence in your life matters, that his efforts are not just acknowledged, but that they have a deep and irreplaceable impact. And this is a distinction that most women fail to recognize, because there is a difference, a fundamental psychological difference between being needy and being valuable. A woman who is needy operates from lack. She is afraid, insecure, grasping at whatever reassurance she can find. A woman who is valuable operates from abundance. She does not need a man to complete her, but she allows him to enhance her life in a way that is profoundly fulfilling for both of them. And here is the key. A man wants to be a hero in his woman's life. not in some exaggerated fairy tale way, but in a deeply biological, psychological, and spiritual sense. He wants to be someone who makes a difference, someone who protects, provides, and contributes in a way that gives him a sense of legacy. And when a woman makes space for that in her life, not by demanding, not by manipulating, but by inviting him into that role, she becomes irreplaceable. Because here's something crucial. A man will not stay where he does not feel useful. He will not invest where he feels unnecessary. He may linger out of obligation, out of convenience, even out of habit, but he will not pour his soul into something that does not require his strength, his wisdom, his presence. Now, does this mean that a woman should pretend to need a man? Absolutely not. That would be inauthentic, and men, especially strong, intelligent men, can sense inauthenticity a mile away. What it does mean is that a woman who truly values her man understands the importance of letting him lead where he is meant to lead, contribute where he is meant to contribute, and protect where he is meant to protect. And this is where modern relationships often go wrong. Women have been told over and over again that to be strong means to be self-sufficient to the point of needing no one, that asking for help is weakness, that relying on a man in any way is regressive. But that is not strength, it is isolation. It is cutting off one of the deepest sources of connection that a relationship can offer. Because the truth is, men and women are meant to complement one another, not compete, not mirror each other exactly, but to provide something that the other lacks. And when that balance is destroyed, when a woman refuses to allow a man to bring his unique strengths into her life, when she insists on carrying everything alone, what she often finds is that over time he detaches, and not because he does not love her, but because he does not feel like he is adding anything meaningful to her life. Now, this does not mean a woman should become helpless. Quite the opposite. The strongest women, the ones who truly captivate a man, are those who are capable but still choose to let him contribute. They recognize that strength is not about doing everything alone, but about knowing when to allow partnership to enhance what they already have. Think of it like this. A kingdom may have a powerful queen. She may be wise, capable, respected, but even a queen needs a king. Not because she is incapable, but because she understands that shared purpose creates a greater legacy than individual power ever could. A woman who invites a man into her life in this way, who makes him feel that he is not just an accessory, not just a convenient addition, but an integral part of something meaningful. This is a woman who will never struggle to keep a man invested in her. Because he will see his own reflection in the relationship, his strength, his wisdom, his value, shining back at him through her eyes, and men stay where they feel valued. They commit fully when they know they are not just wanted, but needed in a way that makes them better. So the question is this: are you making space for your man to be a man? Are you allowing him to contribute in a way that gives his life deeper purpose? Or are you closing yourself off in a way that signals consciously or unconsciously that he is unnecessary? Because the difference between those two approaches is the difference between a man who stays out of habit and a man who stays because he cannot imagine a life without you. A woman who cultivates confidence and self-respect commands an undeniable presence. She doesn't beg for attention, nor does she shrink herself to accommodate others. She stands tall, both physically and metaphorically, because she understands something fundamental. A woman who respects herself first will naturally be respected by those around her, including the man in her life. This is not about arrogance, nor is it about adopting a hollow, performative version of empowerment. It is about genuinely seeing yourself as valuable, independent of external validation, and that in itself is magnetic. Men, at their core, are drawn to women who know their worth. Not in the superficial sense of demanding admiration or external praise, but in the deeper, existential sense of being rooted in who they are. A woman who carries herself with certainty signals stability and strength. This is the same principle that governs attraction at a fundamental psychological level. We are pulled toward what we perceive as solid, secure, and reliable. Chaos is unsettling. Confidence is reassuring, and it is reassuring. And a confident woman is not one who needs constant reassurance. She provides it through her mere presence. There's an important distinction to be made here. Confidence does not mean perfection. It does not mean an absence of self-doubt or vulnerability. Rather, it means having the courage to face those doubts without allowing them to dictate your worth. It means knowing that you bring something to the table, not out of desperation to prove yourself, but simply because you do. The woman who is desperate to be loved, who fears being alone, who molds herself to fit whatever shape she believes will keep a man interested. Ironically, she becomes less desirable, not more. Why? Because neediness is repellent and self-assurance is intoxicating. Now, there is a misconception that confidence is about being loud, domineering, or aggressively independent to the point of rejecting vulnerability. That is not the case. True confidence exists in quiet moments just as much as in grand gestures. It's in the way a woman carries herself, the way she speaks, the way she interacts with the world. It's in the way she makes decisions, not from a place of fear, but from a place of certainty. A woman like this does not wait for permission to pursue what she wants. She does not shrink herself out of fear that she will intimidate a man. And paradoxically, it is this exact quality that keeps a man intrigued, invested, and, in a sense, addicted. Because here's the truth. Men respect women who respect themselves. They may be entertained by the temporary thrill of insecurity, disguised as attention-seeking, but they commit to and admire the woman who is whole under herself. This does not mean she does not need love, nor does it mean she rejects connection. Quite the opposite. She is fully capable of deep, meaningful intimacy, precisely because she is not afraid of losing herself within it. It's worth noting that confidence is not just about external presence. It is also about internal discipline. A woman who takes care of herself, who nurtures her mind and body, who invests in her personal growth, she becomes a force to be reckoned with. And this extends far beyond physical appearance, though that certainly plays a role. More important is the energy she brings into a room. Is she weighed down by resentment, insecurity, and self-doubt? Or does she exude a quiet strength that makes people want to be near her? Consider this: a man's attraction to a woman is not just about aesthetics. It is about the aesthetics. It is about the way she makes him feel in her presence. Does he feel like he is in the company of someone who knows who she is, who is comfortable in her own skin? Or does he sense underlying neediness, a silent plea for validation? Men, though they may not always articulate it, are highly perceptive to these subtleties. They recognize when a woman is internally solid, just as they recognize when she is internally fragile. And fragility, when it comes from a place of self-neglect, is not attractive. Vulnerability, in contrast, can be. So, the difference is this. Vulnerability is the willingness to be open while still maintaining self-respect. It is sharing fears and dreams with the understanding that one's worth is not contingent upon how they are received. It is an act of strength, not of weakness. This is where self-respect plays its most crucial role. When a woman respects herself, she does not tolerate behavior that diminishes her. She does not accept mistreatment out of fear of being alone. She does not settle for mediocrity because she believes she cannot do better. A woman with self-respect draws boundaries, not to punish, but to protect. And when she does this, something remarkable happens. The man in her life begins to rise to meet her standards. Because when a woman values herself, a man must either step up or step aside. He must either recognize that he is in the presence of someone who will not accept less than what she deserves, or he will find himself unworthy of her time. And this is where the real power lies. Not in manipulation, not in games, but in the unwavering understanding that a woman who honors herself commands honor in return. So if a woman seeks to keep her man addicted to her, it does not start with strategy, nor does it start with tactics designed to hold his attention. It starts with how she sees herself. Because when a woman truly embodies confidence and self-respect, she does not have to chase love, it finds her, and once it does, it never wants to let go. There is something profoundly powerful about being a source of peace in a chaotic world. Every man, whether he admits it or not, carries burdens, pressures from work, expectations from society, struggles that he does not always have the words to articulate. The world is demanding. It is ruthless, and a man must be strong to survive it. He is expected to perform, to provide, to succeed, to push forward, regardless of exhaustion, fear, or doubt. This is the reality of masculine existence. It is built on responsibility and the necessity of forward momentum. And when a man finds himself constantly battling the external forces of life, the last thing he wants is to come home to another battleground. Now, this is not to say that relationships should be one-sided, that a woman should exist solely to cater to a man's needs while ignoring her own. That would be an absurd misrepresentation of balance. But there is an undeniable truth. The deepest, most enduring attraction is not rooted in fleeting passion or surface-level compatibility. It is rooted in the profound sense of peace and belonging that one person provides to another. A woman who understands this wields immense influence. She does not engage in unnecessary conflict. She does not turn small issues into emotional wars. She does not seek to control, dominate, or test a man's devotion by making him jump through hoops of insecurity. Instead, she offers something far more valuable, a sanctuary. And now many women misunderstand this. They hear the word sanctuary and immediately associate it with submission, passivity, or playing the role of a servile, self-sacrificing partner. That is not what I mean. A sanctuary is not a place of weakness. It is a place of restoration. It is where strength is cultivated, not where it is depleted. It is where a man can lay down his armor, not where he is stripped of it. Consider this: a man who spends his days in a high-pressure environment, be it in his career, his ambitions, or his responsibilities, will inevitably crave moments of relief. Not just physical relief, but psychological relief. A place where he does not have to prove himself, where he does not have to constantly fight to be understood, where he is not met with relentless criticism or passive aggression. A woman who understands this does not drain him. She replenishes him. And in doing so, she becomes irreplaceable. This is not about ignoring problems or suppressing disagreements. Conflict, when handled correctly, strengthens relationships. But there is a difference between constructive disagreement and needless strife. A wise woman knows when to challenge and when to comfort. She knows that respect is the foundation of love, and that constant tension erodes both. She does not nitpick over minor imperfections, nor does she create drama to feel entertained or desired. Instead, she builds an environment where mutual respect flourishes. One of the most powerful ways a woman creates this dynamic is through the way she listens. And I don't mean passive hearing, I mean real listening. Too often, conversations become competitions. Each person waits for their turn to speak rather than seeking to understand. A man who feels truly heard, who knows that his thoughts, worries, and ambitions are not just tolerated but genuinely valued, experiences something rare. In a world where he is often reduced to his utility, where he is measured by what he can provide rather than who he is, a woman who sees beyond that becomes his refuge. There is a deep psychological and even biological basis for this. Men, generally speaking, are problem solvers by nature. They are wired to do rather than simply express. When they share something, it is often not for emotional validation, but to seek solutions or gain clarity. And yet many women make the mistake of responding with criticism rather than encouragement, with frustration rather than patience. The result? The man withdraws. He stops opening up. He distances himself, not because he does not care, but because he has learned that vulnerability will be met with resistance rather than support. And this is where relationships begin to break down, not through singular acts of betrayal or disinterest, but through the slow erosion of trust and emotional safety. Now, none of this means that a woman should ignore her own needs or silence her own voice. Quite the opposite. A true sanctuary is mutual. It is a place where both partners feel safe, valued, and respected. A woman who cultivates this environment does not suppress her own thoughts and desires. Rather, she communicates them effectively. She understands that a strong relationship is not built on emotional outbursts or silent resentment, but on honest, calm, and purposeful dialogue. And here is the fascinating paradox. The more peaceful a woman is, the more powerful she becomes. This is not weakness. It is not submission. It is mastery of herself, her emotions, and her influence. A woman who can provide peace in a man's life becomes his anchor. She is not someone he merely desires. She is someone he needs. Because in a world that constantly demands, criticizes, and exhausts him, she is the one place where he can be fully seen, fully accepted, and fully restored. And so the question is this: what kind of presence do you bring into your relationship? Are you a source of tension or tranquility? Do you uplift or do you deplete? Because the truth is simple. Men do not walk away from women who make them feel at peace. They cling to them. They cherish them. They commit to them not out of obligation, but out of an unshakable addiction to the one person who makes the world feel like home. Men thrive on respect. It is not just a preference. It is a fundamental psychological need. If love is the foundation of a relationship, then respect is the structure that holds it up. Without it, love deteriorates into something resentful, something forced. Women often underestimate just how deeply this truth runs. A man who feels admired, who knows that his efforts are noticed and valued, will move mountains. But a man who feels consistently criticized, belittled, or taken for granted will, over time, detach emotionally first and then physically. Now, this is where many women make a critical mistake. They assume that because they feel love for their man, he must automatically feel respected. But love and respect are not the same thing. A woman can adore her man, care for him, even be deeply committed to him, and still fail to provide him with what he truly craves. The deep, undeniable sense that she sees him as capable, as competent, as worthy of admiration. And if that piece is missing, no amount of love, affection, or devotion will make up for it. There is an uncomfortable but important reality here. Most men would rather be alone than be with someone who makes them feel insignificant. They would rather walk away from a relationship than stay where they are constantly second-guessed, nagged, or subtly undermined. And it's not because they are weak, it's because they are wired to seek respect as their primary form of emotional validation. A woman who understands this wields a unique power. She knows that a man who feels admired by his woman will never want to stray from her presence. She does not withhold praise in the name of keeping him humble or avoid giving him credit out of fear that he will become complacent. She knows that reinforcement does not create laziness, it creates loyalty. This is where psychological depth comes into play. You see, people rise or fall to meet the expectations set for them. When a woman consistently reinforces the best in her man, he becomes more of that. If she treats him as strong, competent, and worthy of admiration, he will strive to embody those qualities even more. But if she constantly criticizes him, questions his decisions, or subtly suggests that he is not living up to her standards, he will eventually withdraw. Not necessarily in anger, but in quiet detachment. There is a biological and evolutionary aspect to this as well. Men have always been designed to provide and protect. Historically, their value within a tribe or society was measured by their ability to contribute, to hunt, to build, to defend. And while the modern world has changed the methods, the underlying psychology remains the same. A man needs to feel useful. He needs to feel that his efforts are acknowledged, that his presence in your life makes a difference. A woman who understands this does not just say a thank you out of politeness. She makes it clear that his contributions matter. And it's not just about what she says, but how she says it. Tone is everything. If appreciation is delivered in a way that feels forced or mechanical, it does not carry weight. But when a woman looks at her man, really looks at him with a sense of genuine gratitude, when she tells him that she believes in him, that she is proud of him, that she sees how hard he works, that his strength makes a difference in her life, that is when he becomes addicted to her presence. Now, let's be clear. This does not mean a woman should ignore shortcomings or avoid addressing issues. There will always be moments where accountability is necessary, but there is a stark difference between guiding with respect and tearing down with criticism. A strong woman does not tolerate mediocrity, but she also understands that criticism should be measured, not constant. If correction becomes more frequent than appreciation, the relationship shifts into a dynamic of negativity. And here's where self-awareness becomes critical. Many women have been conditioned, either through past relationships or societal messages, to believe that keeping a man humble is the key to maintaining power in a relationship, that if they praise too much, he will become complacent, that if they admire too openly, he will take them for granted. But this is a fallacy. Insecurity does not inspire devotion. Admiration does. When a man feels honored by his woman, he does not become arrogant. He becomes devoted. He becomes devoted. When he knows that the person closest to him respects him, he does not grow complacent. He grows into a better version of himself. A man who feels genuinely admired by his partner will go to war for her, build for her, sacrifice for her, and remain loyal to her in a way that no superficial attraction could ever compete with. So, the question is this: how do you make a man addicted to you? You recognize the deep, undeniable power of respect and admiration. You become the one person in his life who does not just see him, but who believes in him. You make it clear that his efforts are noticed, that his strength is valued, that his presence matters. Because here is the truth: a man will always be drawn to the woman who makes him feel like a man. Not through manipulation, not through games, but through genuine appreciation. He will move mountains for the woman who sees him not as ordinary, but as extraordinary, and once a man feels that, he will never want to let go.